to Pikachu with a snowman. He's so cute. Okay, I can make this applicable to the video. The video today is about Iceburg, as in the mayor of Water 7, head of the Galley-La company, shipwright, Frankie's brother. And he has a pet mouse whose name is Tyrannosaurus. Mouse. There we go. I did it. Put that back over here. It was like, I can connect this. I can. Okay, so as I said, today's video is going to be about Iceburg. It is the next one in my leaders and rulers and royals and blah, 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 blah series that I'm doing. Iceburg is the current mayor of Water 7. I've talked about a couple of other mayors through this. I've talked about Whoopslap, and I've talked about Boodle and such throughout the course so far. I don't think there's really any other full-on mayors that I will be talking about throughout the rest of the story. Pretty much most of the rest of the story is going to be other kings and queens, princes and princesses to a degree. Some in regards to like stuff with the world government and stuff like that, which will be the next set of videos are going to be about like the world government, overviews, different aspects of it that we are aware of, things like that. And in regards to how they kind of rule the whole world. And then to a degree, I will be talking about some of the Yonko down the line because they are like rulers of their different territories, but particularly like Big Mom, specifically as a queen in regards to Topland. So we'll see how some of that turns out later. But today is about Iceburg, president of the Galley-La company, mayor of Water 7, former member of Tom's Workers, and for all intents and purposes, the adopted foster brother of Frankie. Cuddy Flam, however you want to refer to him. Iceburg is 40 years old. I believe him and Frankie are the same age. Because I think Frankie is 48 he's either 38 or 40. I can't remember how old Frankie is off the top of my head. Sorry. Most of the other Straw Hats ages I can do, but like Frankie and Jimbei are like the two that I'm like, I don't remember off the top of my head. But Iceburg is 40, so I think Frankie is about the same age. And of course, just doing this now for the name, it's very likely the Iceburg name is just a joke ironic joke reference because of the fact that icebergs throughout history have sank hundreds, thousands of ships and everything. Most, of course, notably the, Titanic and everything. And such. So that's the joke there, that he's a shipwright and he builds ships and his name is Iceburg, as opposed to like, icebergs that are generally, used to sink ships or have sunk so many ships over the years. So yeah, that. In regards to Iceburg's personality, he does take his job as the mayor of Water 7 and the head of the Galley-La company fairly seriously. He very much wants to make sure that his city and his company and the other shipwright setups throughout the course, throughout Water 7 itself, all are thriving and doing wonderfully and everything like that. And I'll go into that when I get into his history, but he is, of course, kind of the one that like united all of these different warring shipwright groups and formed them into like this one, kind of conglomerate, yes, but now they all actually have work and they're all able to work together and build these amazing ships and everything, because we know that the history of Water 7 is that so many amazing shipwrights, were part of, Water 7 as it was built up, with the whole thing, and the fact that it's like, it's based on Venice, and Venice is, slowly sinking / in certain cases rising currently for Venice. And of course, Water 7 has all of like the different areas that are like all underwater, and then like it's just been built on top of itself again and again and again, built up to where it is now. We also know that Water 7 is, of course, where Pluton was designed, and then either that's where it was built, or that's where like something to fight against it was built. One of the two. So there is that connection there, and we know that the blueprints for Pluton were passed down from like master shipwright to master shipwright to master shipwright throughout the course of Water 7. They eventually ended up in Tom's hands, and of course those blueprints eventually ended up being given to Iceburg, and then Iceburg gave them to Frankie when Frankie showed back up again. But I'll go over that. In regards to, Iceburg's personality, he cares so much about his city and his company, in regards to being, those two positions that he holds as mayor and as president of Galley-La. He cares so much about his shipwrights and, other employees and everything like that. But he, of course, also has this other side where he's just like very lazy, or very, he's very accomplished, but he is also just like, I don't want to do that. Because like we see him like just like complaining about having meetings and stuff like that when Khalifa is telling him like what's on his schedule for the day, and he's like, move that to tomorrow, and I'm going to show these random pirates that we just met around the shipyard because I want to. But they all of them, pretty much everybody in the city just adores Iceburg and everything like that because of what he was able to accomplish. And he is a very, very good leader. That is very much something that is very well shown. He also has, as I mentioned, he has this little pet mouse that is just called Tyrannosaurus that he literally like picks up the morning that he ends up meeting like Luffy, Nami, and Usopp when they go to Dock 1 to, meet a shipwright, to go find a shipwright and everything. He like literally found this mouse. I don't remember if you find out where he found the mouse. I guess he found it on his way to work. While him and Khalifa were on the way there. Finds the mouse, likes the mouse, adopts the mouse, names it Tyrannosaurus, and then he carries it in his pocket for like a good chunk of that episode, or that section there. The mouse is adorable. I love the mouse. So yeah, I love the mouse. And then we have, throughout the course of, in regards to his personality, as I said, he can be lazy at times and everything, but he's also just this, he has like childish tendencies, of course, which is perfectly understandable for any adult in the One Piece world. Yep, that happens. Yep, I buy it. In regards to other things, he doesn't particularly like making weapons because of his past with what happened with Tom and Frankie and, the battle Frankies and everything that happened with Tom and all of that. He doesn't particularly like making weapons. But, pirate ships ships in general usually require having something that can be used for like defense on it. So yeah, there's that. Also in regards to being a shipwright, he has a deep understanding and sympathy for ships that have been through so much. Because the thing is that when Kaku comes back from, examining the Going Merry, he tells, Usopp and Nami and Luffy and Iceberg what he found, the fact that, basically the spine of the ship is damaged beyond repair and things like that, where it's like the ship can't go really any further. It's going to fall apart. Iceberg does not take that lightly. He is very sympathetic and understanding the fact that the crew obviously love their ship, particularly Usopp with the fact that it came from Kaya. And of course, Nami and Zoro and Sanji and Luffy and Usopp have been with the ship since the beginning. And they've, had a lot of adventures and amazing things like that they've done with the Going Merry. And they don't want to get rid of it. And Iceberg doesn't necessarily want to force them to make the choice, but he is a shipwright and he understands the fact that the ship can only go so far. The ship can only take so much damage. And he doesn't like the fact that he has to explain that to them, but he's like, these are the options. We can't fix your old ship. It can't be done. Even if we tried to rebuild it from scratch, it would be a different ship because it would have a different setup and everything to it. In regards to, it may have the same design, but it's not going to be the exact same ship. And then, it's still not going to be the same thing and everything. And, so we see that. And then later on, during Aqua Laguna and everything like that, Iceberg ends up hearing the voice of the Mary, and it's kind of, he sees it like sailing on its own and talking about wanting to sail on its own one last time. And that speaks to him as a shipwright. It's, it's the Klabautermann within the Mary that is talking to him. And he spends a good part of Aqua Laguna going through and actually, like, setting up, getting the Mary fixed up to the point where it can sail one last time. And that's where it sails out to, sails to Ennis Lobby and is able to help save the Straw Hats and get them away from Ennis Lobby. So we see that in regards to his determination in that regard. Moving into Iceberg's past. So, as I said, Iceberg is 40 years old. Way back when he was, a teenager, and even probably because I think he was literally like raised by Tom and Kokoro and everything way back. And becomes, Tom's apprentice and everything, and ends up, apprenticing with him alongside, Cuddy Flam at the time. And Frankie's a few years younger than him. So I think Frankie is like 38. I think he was like 36 when we first meet him, I think. But Frankie and Iceberg just constantly argued with each other. Frankie wants to go over here and build all of his battle Frankies and everything like that. Or Cuddy Flam, wants to go over here and build all of his battle Frankies and everything. And then, Iceberg's over here trying to help Tom with, whatever work they can get, trying to help build, ships and stuff like that. And eventually what ends up happening is, of course, the world government ship shows up. Judicial ship shows up, and Tom is put on trial for the fact that he built the Oro Jackson for Goldie Roger and everything. And, Tom is able to convince him of just give me the chance to build the sea train. I can build it, and it will make Water 7 so much better. It will help get Water 7 what it needs to be able to survive more. Just let me try. And credit to the judge. The judge allows it. He's like, okay, how many years are you going to need? And I think Tom says 10 years or something like that. And the judge is like, fine, you get it. But if I come back and it's not built, or it's not what you promised, you're going to Ennis Lobby. Blah, blah, blah. Tom agrees, and throughout that whole time frame, while they're building the sea train, Iceberg very much is they're helping Tom alongside him for the whole time. Eventually, Cuddy Flam ends up coming and ends up helping as well. He kind of, Frankie at the time is trying to more focus on his battle Frankies, and then eventually he's just yeah, fine, I'll help. But the thing is that during that whole time frame, we have this family setup where Tom is basically the father of the family, and Kokoro is basically the mother, although Tom and Kokoro are not married. We have, that situation, and then Frankie and Iceberg, and then the frog, who I cannot remember the frog's name, I'm sorry. The giant fighting frog or whatever. That, they're kind of the kids. And, Frankie and Iceberg both grow at this time. They're growing in skill and everything like that as they're building, the Puffing Tom and the Rocket Band and whatever else, and building the sea train tracks and all of that stuff. And, eventually it does get to 10 years later where they have completed the sea train. And, it's what they needed it to be. There's this, big celebration. Water 7 starts to get put on the map again because people can get there so much easier. And they have all of that. And, the judge shows back up again and is ready to literally pardon Tom because he sees what Tom did and everything with the sea train and everything. He's willing to pardon Tom. This, of course, coincides with, of course, Spondum showing up, where Spondum is, of course, trying to get his hands on the blueprints for Pluton. And he goes to Tom, and I can never remember why Spondum thinks Tom has the blueprints. I mean, admittedly, Tom does have the blueprints, so Spondum is technically right in that regard, as much as I hate saying that. Much as I hate saying that, Spondum is technically right. But I don't remember why he thinks Tom has it. Is it because Tom built the Oro Jackson and they think that that's like something that could be comparable to Pluton? Is it because of something else, just whatever other things? It's like Tom, like, yes, he has the blueprints, but he keeps them secret. He keeps them locked up. And all of that. And he does give them he shows them to Frankie and Iceberg and is like, look at these. And they're like, this is like a ship that could destroy, they're like looking at it, it's like, these blueprints should not exist. This type of a thing should not exist. And given the fact of what we've learned much more recently in the storyline, that, A, where Pluton is, which is under Wano, but B, Pluton was built probably with like the futuristic technology and everything like that existed like in the, the Great Kingdom and everything like that, 900 years ago and everything like that, before the Void Century, when we had like that, when, there was like a futuristic society, futuristic technology and everything like that. So yes, Frankie and Iceberg being completely baffled by this makes perfect sense. They're like, A, you would need to be like a master shipwright to be able to build this, but B, these blueprints should not exist in the first place. Side note here, Tom also has a wanted poster of Robin because he is assuming that she has this connection to, because of what happened with O'Hara and everything, he's like, oh, she may have a connection to wanting to know about the ancient weapons and everything. And it's very debatable how much Tom knows about like the poneglyphs and the ancient weapons in general. This is after he's, built the Oro Jackson for Roger and has, probably met Roger and the rest of the crew multiple times during that time frame and everything like that, because Tom was Roger's friend and everything. So Tom could have known a bit here and there about stuff, but that doesn't mean that like Roger like literally sat Tom down at some point and said, let me tell you about these giant cubes we've been finding with writing all over them. They're amazing. I gotta tell you about them. It's not like that's ever been the case. That's never been the case as to, what is there. I don't think that's ever been said one way or the other. But of course, if the blueprints have been passed down from like master shipwright to master shipwright and eventually ended up with Tom, the way that he's passing it down to Iceberg and Frankie is probably pretty similar to how it was passed down to him. So he shows them the blueprints and then he locks them back up. He warns them to be cautious of Robin, which is why much later on when the Straw Hats do show up and Iceberg is aware that they have Robin on their crew, that's why he's a little bit more wary of Robin and everything like that. That's why he knows who she is when she shows up later on to assassinate him. But of course, what ends up happening is Spondum ends up getting a hold of the Battle Frankies and uses them to attack during the trial. When, Tom is about to be pardoned and everything, it's like, the judge is like, I will pardon you, blah, 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 because of what you built and you'll be fine and blah, 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 blah. Then the Battle Frankies all show up and start attacking and, attacking the civilians and all of that. And Tom, in an effort to protect Frankie and Iceberg, he looks at the judge and he's like, I get one free pardon, right? Fine. Then it's for this crime. Lock me up for the fact that I built the ship. And of course, Iceberg and Kokoro and Frankie are all witnessing this when this is happening and everything, because Tom is doing this to protect Frankie. And, Tom gets, locked up and whisked away off to Ennis Lobby, possibly eventually impelled down. Again, so many theories as to whether or not Tom's actually still alive. And if he is, where is he? Since we didn't see him at Ennis Lobby and we literally didn't see him at Ennis Lobby, saw him at Impel Down and didn't see him at Impel Down, blah, 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 blah. And Frankie, of course, Cutty Flam, of course, tries to stop the sea train and everybody thinks that he's dead. Iceberg now has to take up this position of guarding the blueprints. And what else Iceberg does is this is during his rise to prominence, where he's like, okay, part of Tom's dream was also having this like united setup for all of the shipwrights here in Water 7 so they can all get work, as opposed to fighting with each other over who gets to work with who. And what he does is he is, as like Tom's only surviving assistant, Iceburg is like, okay, I have to carry on Tom's dream, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to fix Water 7. And he does. He proceeds to work his way through all of the different shipyards with all the different shipwrights and unite them into one company, Galley-La Company. I don't remember if we ever get an exact answer as to what Galley-La stands for, but Galley-La. And he gets them all under his, all under his banner, all basically like unionizes them. And then he sets up all of these different docks all over Water 7, so that way it's like, yes, they're all under the same company, but they all have these different docks where they probably all specialize in different things. These ones are much better at building, pirate type ships. These ones are better at building, ships in regards to like, merchant ships and, carriage, or luxury cruise line vessels, things like that. Different things along those lines. Different ones probably specialize in different things. And he sets all of these different, docks up all over the thing, all over Water 7, and all of the different, shipwrights and everything, and other people that just work for the company in general, all very much, they adore Iceburg for what he was able to accomplish in that regard. And he eventually is, of course, comes to be, elected as mayor by the people of Water 7 because they've seen what he's done for the city. And, so he makes this whole rise to prominence, builds up the corporation. It's eventually built up to be known like worldwide and everything like that. And, it even gets hired by the world government at various points in time. I would assume that Water 7 is like affiliated with the world government, given the fact that they did have like a world government ship show up, and, deliver justice to Tom. To Tom, when that happened, I would assume that it is associated with the world government, but it is clearly not one of the countries that is able to go to Reverie, because if that was true, then Iceburg would have been at Reverie when everything was happening there. But he was not, because if he was, then he would have been a very prominent thing of like, oh, this is another ally of Luffy meeting other allies. But that's not the case. So I don't think that while Water 7 is associated with the world government and probably is able to pay the heavenly tribute and get, protection by the Marines and everything like that, given the fact that Garp was able to go to, Water 7 and that's not a problem, I do not see it as that they are, a high enough rank within like the world government set up in regards to the different countries to be, offered the invitation to come to Reverie. Don't think so. So, during that time frame, Iceburg has built up Galley-La and Water 7, so much more and everything. And he has, he's successfully legitimized himself to the point that if anything happens to him, it is going to be this huge incident. And that is going to make everybody within Water 7 so angry. And that is another way for him to be able to protect the blueprints for Pluton. Because it's like, it's like, I am so important here that it's a much harder thing for them to come and, kill me or try to get me out of the way like they did with Tom, because I'm such a prominent and important figure. So it's like this double-edged, double-edged plan there, or two-part plan there, where it's just like, yes, built up Water 7 and Galley-La and made everything so much better. Plus, it makes it so it's much harder for someone to come and, attack me to get the blueprints. In regards to Iceberg's relationship with Galley-La and his other, shipwrights and everything like that, he is this beloved mayor and shipwright leader and everything like that within the community. Everybody in Water 7 like adores him and loves him for it. He's like so popular. And because of what, Iceberg has set up, so many of the different shipwrights are like celebrities throughout Water 7. So that's just funny and everything like that. With the way that like everybody knows the different shipwrights, because they're just like, oh, it's Kaku, oh, it's Lucci, oh, it's Polly, Tilestone. It's just like, I love that setup. But the other side of that is that because of the way that Iceberg has like united all of the shipwrights and everything, that the people of Water 7 really aren't that scared of pirates for the most part, because like, well, if a pirate is coming to this island, they're generally here because they need either ship repairs or they need a new ship. And because like when the Straw Hats first show up, Kokoro's not all that scared of them. Kokoro's not scared of them at all. Woman's seen too much and she's probably exceedingly drunk. But the other civilians are just like, yeah, no, don't go through this dock. Go over that way and, put your boat over there and then head into the city because you're a pirate ship and we don't want anyone to see you. But it's like, it's fine. But it's like just nice people in the neighborhood giving you directions as to like where to park your car so you're in a safe area type of a thing. Because the shipwrights are able to protect them so easily against, any of the pirates that cause trouble. We see that much later on. But so, Iceberg was able to help build that up and everything. And, eventually what ends up happening is, of course, after he's built up Galley-La and everything, this is when Cutty Flam shows back up again, when Frankie shows up again, with his new cyborg body and everything. And, 4 years after, what happened with Tom. And Iceberg and Frankie end up having this conversation. And Iceberg is legitimately just so happy to see that Frankie is alive, because he thought for the last 4 years that for all intents and purposes, his brother was dead. That he lost his brother and his father figure all in one go. He still had Kokoro, but Kokoro had gone on to the, bottle quite a bit. And, yes, he built so much stuff up and everything like that, but he is legitimately happy, I think, and relieved to see that Frankie is still alive. And then, he gives Frankie the blueprints because the blueprints will be even safer with Frankie. And then he has like this fake set made that he keeps with him, that Iceberg keeps in his safe. And so then Frankie goes off and he starts, kind of fixing up the underworld. And then we have like this duality thing where like Iceberg is like the pinnacle of, kind of Water 7 in and of itself and taking care of the people and everything. And then Frankie's over here like, building up the Frankie family and being like a mafia boss type of thing. So we have that. Then we get into the actual Water 7 arc, where we are, we as the audience are introduced to Iceberg, and where the Straw Hats get to meet him and everything. So, as I said, Iceberg, gets to be introduced to the Straw Hats. He kind of has to deal with like some cyber pole divisions during this time frame, that are like there talking to him about stuff. And then of course we end finding out later on that, the CP9 agents in regards to Khalifa, Kaku, Lucci, and then Blue Nose, the bartender, have all infiltrated Water 7 and the Galley-La company itself in order to, spy on Iceberg and gather information and figure out where the blueprints are. This is known. Well, the audience now knows about it. And what ends up happening is, Iceberg, he gets to meet the Straw Hats and everything like that. He, gets Tyrannosaurus. And he's, it's like, well, maybe we can fix your ship. And then he finds out what actually is going on with it. And just like, no, we can't. I don't think we can fix your ship. And Luffy, I think, just calls him Ice Pops the whole time, I think is what he calls him, which is just kind of funny. And of course, Iceberg kind of gives them some information about what's going on. We also get to see the way that the, before it's revealed that Kaku and Lucci are, spies, we also get to see the way that they are able to, like, literally, like, manhandle this pirate that was there trying to, swindle his way out of not having to pay his bill and everything like that. They just, like, manhandle him and bash him in and whatever. And then, of course, we get, where we actually see, all the Galley-La together, which, I mean, I like Kaku as a character. I don't like that he's technically a bad guy, so we'll see what all happens with what's going on, Egghead with him and Lucci and being around the Straw Hats again and everything like that. We'll see how all that plays out in the end. And whatever happens there, but that's not what this video is about. And what ends up happening is, of course, Iceberg's like, well, you have an option. We can either build you a new ship and then their money gets stolen. And it's just like, okay, well, then you can buy one of these other ships that we have built that is like a refurbished ship or something like that. And you can buy that instead. And of course, to Luffy's credit, he is actually like, okay, this is the decision I have to make as a captain. Therefore, I will make it seriously. And Luffy is to the point where he's ready to make the decision. And then, of course, that night is when Iceberg was, almost shot to death by assassins. And, to everybody, they just make it be Nico Robin and everything like that because of stuff in the Straw Hats and everything. Because, like, oh, they were angry about their ship, so they're just used as like the fall man, the scapegoat setup. And so throughout that day, after Iceberg has been shot and he's been treated and everything, and he's at his at the mayor's house and everything. Which, to be honest, I don't think anyone's really going to ever try to run for mayor against Iceberg. I mean, like, I guess someone could try, but I don't see anyone being able to, like, usurp him from that position type of a thing. And Iceberg will probably stay mayor until he is just ready to retire, and then he'll, like, have another apprentice or something like that. They can become mayor after him. Type of a thing, maybe. I don't know. Polly, you're gonna be mayor next. Oh God, no. That'd be funny. But of course, what ends up happening is, Iceberg is, he's bedridden because he's been, shot and everything. And of course, we have all of the Galley-La workers there trying to protect him, along with a bunch of the other citizens there trying to guard his house and everything and search for the Straw Hats and all of that. And, eventually what ends up happening is, of course, Luffy wants to get in there because he needs to talk to Iceberg because he needs to find out whether or not it really was Robin that was the one that tried to assassinate him. And what ends up happening is, of course, Robin and Blue and O, of course, sneak their way into the mansion and everything, and Robin ends up having Iceberg pinned to the ground with her devil fruit powers and is has him at gunpoint and is interrogating him while she's trying to get information. During this time frame, supposedly Lucci, Kaku, and then Polly, and I think it's Tilestone, and then there's Lulu, I think, who's the one with like the hair that keeps the cowlick that keeps popping up in different places. That he's there as well. They all get knocked out. And, during that time frame, Luffy makes his way inside. He fights Polly, I think, or something. And then him and Polly get, like, pinned to the ground. And then they eventually have to escape. And, Robin is, has Iceberg at gunpoint while she's interrogating him, and they actually end up having like a rather interesting conversation because like Robin is like, I have to do this because I need to protect my crew and everything. And of course Iceberg then later on relays that same information to Nami and everything. But Robin, Robin, of course, she can't really bring herself to actually kill Iceberg. Also, there's other stuff happens where like Luffy shows up and Iceberg is able to escape and all of this other stuff. And Frankie, or no, they want the CP9 agents obviously want the blueprints for Pluton. And they get the blueprints, and I don't remember if this is when like Lucci and Kaku look over the blueprints and figure out that they're fake and then burn them. I think that is the case where they figure out that, oh, these are fake. These are fake blueprints. And then they just destroy them. They like rip them up or whatever. And then they're like, okay. And that's when they head off to go find Frankie at what was, Tom's workers, old, base and everything like that. And that's where they deal with Frankie and Usopp and all of that. Luffy is able to, I think Luffy kind of helps get Iceberg out of there, but like, the mansion gets set on fire anyway. Poor mansion. And Iceberg ends up, of course, out of the mansion. Polly and the others are all got, taken out of there and all safe and everything. Luffy gets kind of beat up by, Law, or by Lucci. And then Iceberg and Nami end up having this conversation where Iceberg is telling Nami about what Robin said. That Robin is, her true intentions are to turn herself over to the world government in an attempt to basically make it that the Straw Hats aren't going to get, hurt while they're in Water 7 and everything. And of course, so Iceberg passes that message on to her. And Robin is not doing it because she wants to obey CP9. It's because they are using the threat of the Buster Call against the Straw Hats as a way of getting Robin to do what they want. And everything. And that in and of itself kind of shows Iceberg's opinion of Robin shift in that regard, because he's like, okay, this is why she's doing this. It's not because she wants to gain information. She's doing it to protect her crew, protect her friends. So he's like, okay, girl gets props for that. And of course, he's like giving them information about, this is what's going on here, and we do have a way for you to follow them. We have Rocket Man, which is this other sea train that we built, but it doesn't have brakes. It can't slow down. It just goes faster and faster and faster. And eventually it ends up resulting in, of course, Iceberg, gets them all set up with Rocket Man, with Kokoro and Chimney and everything. And the rest of the, Polly and Tilestone and Lulu and everything ends up there. All end up there along with the Frankie family, end up there during Aqua Laguna on Rocket Man, and they're heading out of Water 7 toward Ennis Lobby down the tracks to try and help save Frankie and Robin. And of course, the shipwrights want revenge over the fact that, you guys shot our boss against the CP9 agents that betrayed them and shot their boss. So yeah, that's happening. So there's not really too much that we get to see here with Iceberg. Basically, he ends up spending part of a good chunk of Aqua Laguna fixing up the Going Merry, as I mentioned. He fixed it up because he hears the voice of the ship. It's the Klabautermon of the ship talking to him. And because it connects with him so much, he goes and he, fixes up the ship as much as he can. And I don't remember if any of the other shipwrights, because there's not really any of the other ones there at the moment, but some of the other shipwrights that are there help, and he gets the Merry and sends it on its way to the point where it is able to head off to Ennis Lobby to try to help save the Straw Hats one last time for one more voyage. And it heads off, and then of course Iceberg and the rest of the some of the other members of the Galley-La head off on their own ship to go and follow. And of course, during Ennis Lobby, after that, during the Ennis Lobby setup, what ends up happening is, of course, Iceberg and the others show up just at the end of Ennis Lobby. And, the Straw Hats are there, and, the Merry is got them safely out of there, but the Merry is falling apart. And Iceberg and the others were able to help get the rest of, the shipwrights and everything off, and the Frankie family, I think, off of Ennis Lobby, during the Buster Call, that they showed up and were able to help with that escape. And, the Straw Hats got on the Merry, and the Merry sailed them away to a safe area. And, Luffy tries to see if there's anything else Iceberg can do to save Merry. And Iceberg is like, no, I can't, because Merry is just literally in half at that point in time, unfortunately. And Iceberg is just like, I can't do anything. There's nothing else I can do to fix your ship. I did everything I could before, and it's, the keel is still busted, and what I did only held for so long, and it's not going to hold any further. It's time to let the ship rest and everything. And of course, so Iceberg is there and bears witness to the Viking funeral that they give the Merry and everything, as it's burned and everything. And, then all of the Straw Hats, get on the Galley-La ship, and they all head back to, Water 7. And then during the post-Ennis Lobby arc, we have it, the town is, getting fixed up from Aqua Laguna for whatever damage was done there. And Iceberg ends up making, Iceberg helps Frankie and the others helps Frankie and the other shipwrights and in building the Thousand Sunny and everything. Um, and so he's part of that and everything. And like the Straw Hats kind of stay at part of the Galley-La lodging and everything like that while they're staying in Water 7 while the ship is being built and everything. Gets his wall busted in by Garp, so sorry. Um, and, so Iceburg is there, and Iceburg is also part of helping convince Frankie that Frankie needs to go with the Straw Hats. A, because now he's a wanted man and he has a wanted poster. B, because, yes, part of your dream was to build the ship that can sail across, 1,000 seas under the sun's light, but it was also your dream to stick with that ship and help take care of it and make sure that it stays, as ship shape as possible. And so Iceberg helps with convincing, getting that through Frankie's thick skull. And Frankie does go, and Iceberg is, happy for his friend and everything, sailing off on the ship of his dreams and everything and going off in that setup. Eventually what ends up happening is, so Iceberg has that set up. He's, they're going to fix up Galley-La again and all of that and get better shipwrights. We know that he hires the Frankie family and they go from ship dismantlers into builders and stuff because he wants to keep them safe as well because they were Frankie's family as well, literally. And now he's going to keep them safe and everything. And because, of course, Iceberg needs a new secretary, we have, of course, part of the little cover page series for, like, the Where Are They Now is Iceberg having, auditions for, like, a new secretary. And he ends up with, like, this little 12-year-old girl or 10-year-old girl who's, like, a candidate number 153, I think. And she ends up as his secretary. Eventually she's the one that ends up getting picked as his secretary. And she seems to be very good, very, very good at her job, which is important. I know that in the anime they had it where they had it like on like the back of a newspaper of like, Iceberg holding, auditions for a secretary. There's pollen in the air and my nose is stuffed up. Sorry. And Iceberg, gets her as his secretary. And we haven't really gotten too much else about Iceberg at the moment. As I said, we just had Reverie, and Iceberg was not involved in Reverie. So that means that Water 7 is not high enough within the echelons to be able to warrant getting an invitation to Reverie. Otherwise, Iceberg probably would have been there. And we do get to see like his reaction to like when they got Frankie's new bounty poster after like Fishman Island. Like they're like, "Oh God, Frankie, what did you do?" When they see like his bounty poster is of course like him as the Iron Frankie Shogun, and they're like, "Oh God, Frankie, what did you do?" And then we cut to when we get the when we're getting the different other wanted posters and everything like that, just other reactions with that. There is a reference to Iceberg in film Red because we see Water 7 in film Red. So I'm assuming Iceberg is one of the people that was like watching the concert for Uta and everything. But again, that's not quite canon. I don't think Iceberg has appeared in any of the movies as far as I'm aware. But it's going to be interesting to see Iceberg's reaction when they think that the next bounty poster for Frankie is, the Thousand Sunny. It's just like, oh God. So Iceberg is just going to be like, oh Lord, now what happened? Type of a thing. So we'll see what happens there. I do really like Iceberg. I do want him to show back up again, and I want, Polly and the others to show back up again at some point in time. I mean, it's not like the Straw Hats need another shipwright because, like, they have Frankie, and then, of course, Frankie has been teaching Usopp and everything, to be a shipwright and all of that. And then, the most I can see happening if we ever do end up seeing Iceberg again beyond, like, some just, checking in with him, at some point in time, if we get, like, the decks of the world again with, seeing, for the 3 billion Barry Man arc. With that, with seeing everybody's reactions to the Gear 5th Luffy and everything and the Straw Hat new bounties in that regard, so we'll see what happens there. But I don't really see us getting too much more with Iceberg beyond like at the end, where like Frankie probably goes back to Water 7 and gets to see Iceberg and Kokoro and Chimney again and all of that, and gets to see the Frankie family and all of that. I don't really see us getting to see anything else with Iceberg, because it's like I thought of different ways that other allies of the Straw Hats can help them, like down the line, if there's anything in regards to like the big battles. But the only thing that I can think of is that like Iceberg and I mean, I don't think we ever actually get to see Iceberg fight. Now that I think about it, we see Polly and Tilestone and Lulu and some of the other ones fight, but we never got to see Iceberg fight, as far as I can remember. I know that he has like a flintlock pistol, but that's different than fighting. That's just having a firearm. So I would assume he might be able to fight on some level, but we just never saw it. It never became applicable in the story to see him fight. So we'll see what happens with that. And beyond him showing up with like a whole fleet of ships designed to help the Straw Hats, I don't see that happening. Also, side note here, I don't know if this has ever been referenced. The Barto Club ship, Bartolomeo's ship, the Going Luffy Senpai, oh god, that ship. If he knows that the Straw Hats had their ship built at Water 7, do you think he went and got his ship built there as well? Or do you think he had that ship built in the East Blue? One of the two. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if he wanted to have it built at Water 7 to like follow in the path of Luffy, but I don't know. And at that point in time, he'd be like, you met Luffy, right? Yes. Just like Iceberg looking at him. Yes, I've met Luffy. Please, I need you to build me a ship that looks like him. Iceberg. What else do you want on the ship? I don't know. But the thing is that I don't think Iceberg would have been. I don't think Bardo would be able to like strong arm Iceberg into building him a ship for free. So, just thoughts I had. So that's what I have. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Next up for these rulers and leaders will be different aspects of the world government. And no, I'm not doing individual videos about every single one of the Gorosei. If you want that, go watch Tekking, because he did it far better than I could probably do. Also, I do not have the interest to do videos about every single one of those annoying old men. Bye!